Aloha, and welcome to this presentation of the Vegan Society of Hawaii. We're so delighted today to welcome Jane Velez-Mitchell, the founder of Unchained TV, and today her talk will be Unchained TV Bursting Through the Media Blackout. Aloha, Jane.
Aloha. Thank you for having me. Hawaii is one of my favorite places on earth. I love the fact that you have this vegan society there. Wow. So I'll jump right into it. I have a long history in television journalism, graduated from NYU in 1977, and then worked in my first job at a TV station in Fort Myers, Florida, where I was a reporter and weekend anchor, then Minneapolis, where I was a reporter, then Philadelphia, where I was a reporter, weekend anchor, then New York at WCBS TV, where I was a reporter and weekend anchor. Then I got a job out here in LA on the Paramount lot, and I was a weekday anchor. So that was a step up for me. I worked there for about 12 years. Then I went on a show called Celebrity Justice. You know, it was toward that point of my career, and I'll just wrap up with the career and then jump into my vegan story. After I was at Celebrity Justice, I ended up getting a job on CNN Headline News, where I had my own show for 6 years. After that, I started my nonprofit, Unchained TV. So here we are today. So I grew up in a mostly pescatarian household. We actually kind of thought we were vegetarians, but we had fish, eggs, cheese, dairy, but we were at least on the road. We knew that hamburgers didn't fall from hamburger trees, and we did not have meat in the house. Certainly, we didn't buy it. We did have a country house where sometimes we had cookouts and people would make hamburgers, but we didn't eat them. But we ate like clams and things like that. But it's a journey. It's a process. Not that many people are born vegan. I know a couple of them, but obviously it's a rarity. But I do have to thank my parents for at least being on the journey, being aware. They were animal lovers. My mother was an animal lover in particular. There is a huge, huge challenge that we face as vegans. And that challenge is we are barreling toward a climate apocalypse. We have to stop just talking to people individually and use social media and use every technology available to get the message across. So streaming has overtaken broadcast and cable as the number one way that people are seeing television today. Approximately 3 billion people around the world have these devices. We need to use this technology. So I founded the world's only vegan animal rights streaming network. And I want to give you a tour to show you what it's like, because I don't take a salary. I run a nonprofit. Our organization is nonprofit. We are mostly volunteer. We are doing this for one reason and one reason only. Alarm bells should be going off around the world. It's going to get a lot worse. The climate catastrophe is just beginning. And we have the power if we join together, if I can activate everybody on this Zoom. Remember, as the saying goes, never underestimate the ability of a small group, but determined group of people to change the world. So let me share my screen and give you a tour of Unchained TV. And hopefully as you watch, you'll think about ways that you might be able to contribute. We just are very excited. We just got an anonymous donor who's giving us a matching grant for every $10 a month that people sign up for. In other words, if you become a $10 a month monthly donor, he's going to donate $100. So if we got 100 people to donate $10 a month, which is not going to bankrupt anybody, we could go a long way toward running this, because we're not making a profit. I don't take a salary. We do need community help and community involvement to make this a continued success. So without any further ado, I'm going to share my screen and hopefully give you a tour of this really unique, one-of-a-kind streaming network. There is no other one like it in the world, an animal rights streaming network. We are news and entertainment. So I like to call ourselves the CNN, Netflix of veganism and animal rights. We have a mix of entertaining, informative, sometimes shocking, newsy content. Just to give you an overview of like our featured page, that's really right at the top. This was an original video that we did when the infamous farmer John Slaughterhouse here in downtown LA that has killed millions of pigs announced that it was shutting down. We did an original series on the closure of Farmer John, which generally the mainstream media just covered it like, oh, jobs are going to be lost. Nobody talked about the animals that are going to be saved, although obviously their animals will still be killed somewhere else. It is a victory for those who attended vigils here month after month, year after year, that it closed down. So I'll give you a brief look.
We're really doing because we're really trying to convince people to stop eating dead bodies. Because we're really trying to convince people to stop eating dead bodies. And when you think about it like that, it sounds like a horror movie.
If you're not okay with animal cruelty, you go vegan. There's no other thing. You can't be an animal lover and support animal cruelty in places like this.
The pigs, all the piglets, all the babies that came through here are only about 6 months old. As smart as a 3-year-old. About 10,000 a day, 6 days a week.
When they say carbon dioxide causes a painless loss of consciousness and death, that is a lie.
Something I strongly encourage everyone to consider is where you choose to spend your money.
I'm Jane Velez-Mitchell for Unchained TV at the infamous Farmer John Pig Slaughterhouse near downtown LA. This slaughterhouse is closing, and that's why this event is occurring. For years, animal activists have held vigils here as the pigs arrive, frightened and confused and thirsty, in truck after truck after truck, to be slaughtered.
Just because we can't pull them off of the trucks doesn't mean we should just ignore them completely because they're minutes away from their deaths. We're down here to say, I see you, you're an individual, you're trapped in a system that is just, annihilating sentient beings to the tune of 70 billion on the planet per year that are bred into existence only to be mutilated and slaughtered for food.
So this is just one example of our original series. Some of them are very serious. Some of them are much more lighthearted. I'm going to continue on. We're very lucky. We just got Moby's punk rock vegan movie, something totally different, something that is extremely different. By the way, we'll keep it to where you've been watching. So if you want to watch half a movie and go somewhere and come back the next day, you can watch right where you are. But you don't have to be into the punk rock thing to appreciate it. It's actually a very funny movie, but it's very hard to just pick a random 20-second clip and give you an overview of that. What I'd like to do is continue showing this and show how you can browse through this. We have more than 1,000 videos, including movies, including cooking shows. The International Vegan Film Festival helped us get a lot of films that they have selected as award winners. We have causes. For example, Farm Sanctuary just gave us a whole bunch of videos that are truly adorable. These are the kinds of videos that appeal to mainstream audiences who are not yet vegan to get them in the tent. brings tears to my eyes. You know, you might ask yourself, well, how's this different than YouTube? Well, YouTube, it would be all farm sanctuary videos or all punk rock videos or all this or all that. Here we have a potpourri so people can find out what touches them. And this is all 100% free. You don't even have to subscribe, and you can download Unchained TV right now on your phone. So you could have all of this on your phone, and you can text these videos. So if you have like a friend or a relative who's suffering from heart disease, you can find those health videos. Nutritionfacts.org. We have a ton of videos from nutritionfacts.org that talk about this.
Type 2 diabetes can be prevented, arrested, and even reversed with a plant-based diet. Something we've known since back in the 1930s. Within 5 years, about a quarter of the diabetics were able to get off insulin altogether. But plant-based diets are relatively low-calorie diets. I mean, maybe their diabetes just got better because they lost so much weight. To tease that out, what you need to do is a study where you switch people to a healthy diet, but force them to eat so much food that they don't lose any weight. Then we can see if plant-based diets have specific benefits beyond just all the easy weight loss. Well, we'd have to wait 44 years, but here it is. Subjects were weighed every day. If they started losing weight, they were made to eat more food. In fact, so much more food that some of the participants had problems eating it all. They were like, oh, not another salad. Ugh. But they eventually adapted, so no significant weight change, despite restricting meat, eggs, dairy, and junk. So with zero weight loss, did a plant-based diet still help? Overall, insulin requirements were cut about 60%, and half the diabetics were able to get off their insulin altogether, despite no change in weight. How many years did that take? No, 16 days. 16 days later. So we're talking diabetics who've had diabetes as long as 20 years, injecting 20 units of insulin a day, and then as few as 13 days later, they're off all their insulin altogether, thanks to less than 2 weeks on a plant-based diet, even with zero weight loss. Diabetes for 20 years and then off all insulin in less than 2 weeks. Diabetes for 20 years because no one had told her about a plant-based diet. Here's patient number 15, 32 units of insulin on the control diet, and then 18 days later on none. Lower blood sugars on 32 units less insulin. That's the power of plants.
Now, I'm sure a lot of you know about Dr. Michael Greger, who's absolutely amazing, best-selling author of How Not to Die. He has a whole bunch of videos that he gave us. So what's really special about this is that it's like a library, okay? You can go through here and find the video that touches you or that you think will touch somebody else. A neighbor of mine just said, oh, he implied that he was very ill, and he's an older guy. I've known him for decades, the entire time I've lived here. So what did I do? He knows I'm a vegan. He hasn't really researched it, but I said, look, you can turn it around. Watch this film. And I literally texted him from my phone, forks over knives.
This could be the first generation of children in the United States that lives less than its parents.
We spend $2.2 trillion a year on health care, over 5 times more than the defense budget. In fact, we pay more per person for health care than any industrialized country in the world. Yet we're sicker than ever.
You see, there's no money in healthy people, and there's no money in dead people. The money is in the middle. People who are alive, sort of, but with one or more chronic conditions.
Obesity, diabetes, heart disease, high blood pressure are all diet-related health issues that cost this country more than $120 billion each year.
Every minute, a person in the U.S. is killed by heart disease. 1,500 people a day die from cancer. Combined, these two diseases kill over 1 million Americans every year. Cases of diabetes are skyrocketing, particularly among our younger population.
Diabetes. Life-threatening diabetes.
1 out of 3 people born in the U.S. today will develop this crippling condition during their lifetime. Millions of others suffer from a host of degenerative diseases.
Millions more of us are so stimulated by sugar, coffee, and energy drinks that we've masked our chronic fatigue.
But could there be a single solution to all of these problems? A solution so comprehensive, yet so straightforward, that it's mind-boggling that more of us haven't taken it seriously?
Someone has to stand up and say that the answer isn't another pill. The answer is spinach.
A growing number of researchers claim that if we eliminate or greatly reduce refined, processed, and animal-based foods, we can prevent, and in certain cases even reverse, several of our worst diseases.
They say all we need to do is adopt a whole foods, plant-based diet. It sounds almost too simple to be true.
It was interesting. I had that personal experience. I texted it to him. He watched it. He said, yeah, you're making good sense. I've cut back on my meat. I'm too old to change my habits, but a point well taken. I want to show you all the different causes that we have. We've got Farm Sanctuary. We've got Mercy for Animals. We've got National Animal Rights Day, Gen V, which has incredible video profiles of fascinating people that might interest somebody who might not be interested in seeing a lamb. This guy is super brilliant. Seb Alex, I don't know if you've heard of him.
If anyone says live and let live, I would say if you actually believe those words, then you must inherently believe in veganism, because that's what it's all about. I've always been a big fan of eating meat and animal products, always enjoyed it. I used to go hunting as well. It wasn't until we adopted a cat from the street and I developed a friendship with the cat, and one of my friends pointed out my hypocrisy in claiming to be an animal lover and said, you know, sometimes when you talk about your cat, you talk as if you're an animal lover, but I hope you realize you're not an animal lover, you just love your cat. And that's because you go hunting, you eat meat, you eat animal products. And that was it. I couldn't come up with any argument. I knew for a fact I didn't need to eat meat to be healthy, because obviously my friend was vegetarian at the time. And that's when I went vegetarian. And then I was wondering how come as an adult human being, I was drinking the breast milk of the mother of another animal. And I landed on documentaries like Earthlings, and after I watched it all, I thought I now have the moral imperative to go vegan. So that was my change.
And he is really interesting. In fact, I attended a lecture which we videotaped, and we're going to break it down, because what he takes is every argument against veganism and he provides a rational counter argument, and he has never been defeated. So he goes around the world to universities, and what I love about him is, unlike me, he's very soft-spoken. And so he's not confrontational. He just really, people can really groove on it and just let their resistance down and listen to him. So we're working on some more videos involving Seb Alex. So I'm trying to give you sort of a sense of the wide range. A couple of other things. We did a reality TV series because after a hard day of work, people come home and they want to be entertained. And so we decided, yeah, we better do something entertaining and fun. By the way, I want to show you one of our most successful, no surprise, supermodels taking off their clothes for veganism, but we'll give you a little look at this one.
Unfortunately, the media and the news seldom report on this topic.
In the dairy industry, the male calves are murdered.
It's not like we want to do these things. We feel that we have to.
We need to do whatever it takes to help wake people up, to make the unconscious conscious.
The future of our planet is at stake, and if I gotta go out there naked, I'll do that.
Working in the modeling industry, sex is used a lot as a tool to sell garments, to sell all kinds of things, and it can be used to sell ideas too.
Oh my God, amazing.
So I really wanted to draw attention to animal rights, because animal agriculture is incredibly cruel. Animals live in just awful conditions, and it's causing vast amounts of destruction. So the idea of this protest was basically to get the public's attention by any means necessary. We didn't know what to expect, really.
Is it just for the vegetarian or something?
Vegan.
And this is all about industry. documentaries on it.
No veganism.
And I have done other animal rights protests before, but nothing had the reaction that this had.
Everyone's so positive.
All right, there you go. If you want to continue watching that, you'll have to go onto Unchained TV. So that was a very successful one. And no accident, it's obvious. As she said, sex sells, and they were choosing to do it. And in fact, there were people who copycatted it. After we did this story, there was a Los Angeles protest, and a whole bunch of other cities started doing protests of that nature. So that was very successful. Here is our original series, and it's called Pig Little Lies, and it's a very fun look at a very serious subject, which is people who think they're buying micro pigs or pocket pigs, which don't exist. They're actually lied to. They're sold baby pot-bellied pigs who then grow large and are dumped at the shelter or killed. This is a huge problem. We did this 5-part series that really was well received and got us a lot of media and a lot of views. We surpassed the 1 million mark with these views. And then we turned it into a movie. We believe it's going to be on local PBS stations around the country. So check out just the very beginning. And
people see, people on TV with a little teeny pig that they're holding, and it's like, oh my gosh, I want one of those. Everybody wants a small something. It goes crazy for a while, and they kept getting bigger and bigger. And then we go crazy about 9 months later because they're getting rid of all of them. So it's a vicious circle.
Oh, is that your phone?
Hold on. There's 2 pigs, a bonded pair, at a high-kill shelter. They have basically until tonight.
Whatever it takes, we're going to get those pigs out.
I don't have any place to put pigs. I have pigs all over town. There's nobody else who can step up for this?
Cindy is this fabulous character, and she's like kind of one of these Hollywood characters, a lot of personality. She's a tough Germanic woman, but she's got a heart of gold. And she rescues horses, she rescues goats, and she's got a spot. It's so hard to find people to take these pigs. So we created this Unchained TV rescue center in Cindy's backyard, basically.
Simone called me and said, well, we have this pig in the shelter that is with her husband. Simone always called him her husband. So she's with her husband, and then what actually got me was she showed me the video of the 2. And B was so scared being in the shelter. You could tell, like, she was surrounded by dogs, they were barking, and they're predators for her. So my heart went out to her because she was fearful. And he was very protective of her, and they actually were telling me, oh, he's really aggressive because he put himself in front of her to just like protect her. So I figured,
I can't save all of them, but if I focus like really, really intensely on just 1 or just 2, sometimes I can hit a home run, and that's what we did with these guys.
We get the pigs out. That's already a monumental task. You can't just walk out with pigs. You got to have a way to transport them. They're large. It's a 3-act play. We get them out, we get them to Cindy's, and we think, okay, we can take a break. No, Mama is pregnant.
It was not good news. I mean, of course you want to celebrate life, but it wasn't good news.
They can have anywhere from like 6 pigs to like 14, and we got the full load. We got 13.
what are we going to do? What are we going to do? And again, it's a really fun series. There's drama, there's laughter. You'll laugh, you'll cry. It was professionally produced by Emmy-winning producer who we work with. I knew we had a hit in our hands when my neighbor, who I didn't even know had downloaded Unchained TV, came up to me and said, "What's going to happen with Beatrice?" Because that's the female pig, the mama pig in the series. I'm giving you an overview. We also, when Earthstream decided to close its doors, I reached out and they gave us more than 150 videos. They really arranged for us to get these from these various organizations. That's great because that's another thing that people love. They love cute animal videos. If we can get them into the tent on cute animal videos, and then they start learning about what's happening to animals, that can really, really open their eyes. A lot of religions during the pandemic, they also started streaming networks. So there's a streaming network for Mormonism and different religions. But, if you jumped on that as a non-Mormon, for example, and people were just saying, go Mormon, go Mormon, go Mormon, you might just say, well, how do I get out of here? But if they started talking about the beauty of the red rocks of Utah or got them in the tent in some other way, you might be intrigued and stick around. And that's our philosophy. We want to get people in the tent. And then as they continue to explore, they'll stumble upon perhaps Earthlings, which, as you know, is a documentary that's turned many people, including Seb Alex, vegan. So we have really fun little tiny videos. We also did this very in-depth profile of the woman who runs Orangutan Foundation International. She is right up there with Jane Goodall, and Diane Fossey is one of the primates, one of the three women who made history studying primates in the wild. She focused on orangutans. She's elderly now. We did an in-depth interview for her, which she can also use on her website. So, original content that we produce can be used to help other organizations. I am so honored to interview you for Unchained TV. You are one of my heroes. You have been featured on the cover of National Geographic magazine, not once, but twice. You have received so many honors. You are right up there with Jane Goodall and Diane Fossey.
I have studied orangutans for the last 51 years, and I think my study is probably one of the longest studies of a wild animal population in the history of science.
And you'd have to watch the rest of it. After doing the interview with her, I will never touch palm oil again. I honestly don't even consider it vegan, because she talked about how palm oil is just devastating the orangutan habitat in Borneo. It was just really, really upsetting. And so I would urge everybody, please avoid palm oil at all costs. A lot of cookies that I couldn't eat, and that's a good thing too. All right. And then we get people coming to us like Vintage Veg. They put together this really interesting kind of retro cooking show, and they were looking for where they could show it. And a lot of the people who come to us, they'd love to have their product, their video product, their documentary, their film, their cooking show, whatever it is, on Netflix or Amazon Prime. But it's gotten harder and harder. The old days were, we have a whole series on Amazon Prime that's also on here, award-winning cooking show, which I'll show you in a second. But those days have gone. The streaming networks are much more corporate today, and it's very, very hard for any independent producer who's not doing a multi-million-dollar star-studded production to get their stuff on mainstream streamers, even much less mainstream television. She did this. I think this is kind of adorable.
Welcome to the Vintage Veg. I'm your host, Laura Crotty. We're going on a vintage journey exploring our favorite nostalgic foods and veganizing them. We can all benefit from eating more vegetables, so come join me in the kitchen to eat some plants and taste memories.
This is very different than something I might put together, but I thought, wow, that's very creative. I love it. So some people might be intrigued by that. Different people are going to be motivated by different videos. So we have a real wide array of videos, not to mention some great documentaries like Makadud, Land of Ahimsa, that talk about the dairy industry. Literally, we have well over 1,000 documentaries, about 1,200 now, and cooking shows and nature videos. And my biggest problem is, how do I upload them fast enough? Because people like this woman, okay, Regina Hunter, she and her friend, who's the producer, put together a whole bunch of really good videos. She couldn't find anywhere to put them. I mean, she could create her own YouTube page, and I think she did, but she's not getting that many views. So we can put it on here, show some of her hard work to a totally new audience of people looking for free content.
Welcome to another edition of Veggie Hunter. I'm your guest host, Regina Mitchell, personal trainer and vegan extraordinaire. Today we're in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, about to embark on a Latin vegan experience at the Puerto Rican-inspired restaurant Bar Bon Bon. This fine eatery has all the Latin goodies, from street corn to empanadas to plantanos to homemade tortillas. And of course, the menu consists of 100% plant-based dishes. Today,
we're able to help restaurants. It's important that people, the way we tag, Philadelphia restaurants, that kind of thing, we can help her with her project and give her a better platform than she might otherwise have. But we can also help those restaurants. I could be here all day with more than 1,000 videos. We also focus on celebrities, not just Moby, but we recently did something with James Cromwell. They're trying to destroy LA's Bayona wetlands, which is actually right near where I live. 1,700 species live there who have nowhere else to go. We've been fighting it like crazy. They want to bulldoze the whole thing for over 10 years, and they're calling it a restoration, which is a complete lie. Follow the money. Anyway, we got James Cromwell to show up at a party, and then we did a video on it. We were able to help.
We will win.
Succession actor James Cromwell was the headliner at a packed Venice, California fundraiser. More than 200 Los Angeles residents, along with a very social pig, partied with a purpose. Why the animal representative? Because people at this party love animals and want to save the special place where 1,700 species live, LA's last coastal wetlands. The Bayona Wetlands Ecological Reserve in Playa del Rey is now threatened by a very controversial bulldozing plan that would destroy the home of thousands of wild animals.
Marcia and a few people came to me at some event and said, listen, did you know about the Bayona wetlands? And I'd never heard of the Bayona wetlands. And she described it and said, would you come down and see the wetlands, which I did. And it's this. And it was moving, it was perfect. And I really wanted to be, I said, I'm in. Whatever you want me to do, I'm in.
The Oscar-nominated actor spoke in.
So, yeah. Now that would allow us to have a video, because it's a complicated subject when the opposition is using a phony term like restoration, very Orwellian, and it's anything but restoration. Wholesale destruction is not restoration. Through our streaming network, we were able to get that celebrity to show up, and then we did a video on it and we posted it, and then we distributed the video so we can, we can help with causes as well. Here's a Plant-Based by Nafsika. Now, this woman did the world's first vegan lifestyle show on the A&E FYI network. And we were on it too. I was on it. She had a whole bunch of people and did a whole bunch of episodes. It was on and then it was off. Well, what's she going to do with it after that? We are now uploading season 2. This is season 1. And giving it a new life, so we can give new life to series and documentaries. There's been a couple of documentaries like Vegucated that were on Netflix that we've gotten that are no longer on Netflix. Well, certainly the maker of Vegucated wants to keep using her film to spread the message instead of having it go into, the file cabinet. That's something else that we can do. And yes, we do have the Earthlings film. So hopefully, while people are poking around and checking out this, that, and the other, they can also stumble upon Earthlings and have their life changed. Our website is UnchainedTV.com. And I want to say again, you can click to the right, the donate button. Yes, I'm going to have to give a pitch because this is not cheap. We have an anonymous donor who says, if we're going to add the $10 in today, this just happened 2 days ago. If you become a monthly donor and donate $10 a month, for every $10, he will donate $100. And that would really help us out. We're almost entirely volunteer. A couple of asks, please go to UnchainedTV donate and also download this. It is 100% free. And by the way, you know, we also have an actual website that we produce articles, many articles. We have recipes, we have news, we have literally thousands of articles that we've done on a whole bunch of topics, factory farming, vigils, protests. So we keep putting articles out. And why is that important? For example, this woman just put out the book, The Humane Hoax. This has got really good information, especially now that there's such corporate greenwashing. Do you think any mainstream media is covering this? Of course not. So we do an interview with her. I have a weekly podcast on Voice America Radio that is a video podcast. I can give you a couple of seconds for that. I am so excited to have with me today two of my heroes, Hope Bohanec and Robert Grillo. These are the folks doing the hard work on the ground to wake up the world to the humane hoax. So we do an interview, we do an article, an in-depth article, and then they can use this with obviously links where they can purchase the book. So they can use this to get some coverage because the mainstream media isn't covering our movement. We've been covering trials, people who were involved in open rescue. This woman, Tracy Murphy, who 2 cows wandered from a ranch onto her sanctuary. She didn't want to give them back for excellent reasons. She didn't have proof that the person who came and said those were my cows were. She was handcuffed and shackled, charged with a felony, and then they started bullying her, threatening her life. We have done several stories. TV, we are covering a breaking news story. A woman named Tracy Murphy, who owns a sanctuary, a farmed animal sanctuary in upstate New York, took in 2 cows that she said just wandered onto her property. She was ultimately arrested, charged with felony grand larceny. That has recently been reduced to petty larceny. I'll show you her mugshot right here. This is Tracy Murphy, and she is still facing trial on petty larceny. There was supposed to be a hearing, but it was postponed. Some supporters in that area of New York actually have held a protest. We're going to go straight out to, let's go straight out to Gabby Richards. Gabby, you're on live. Tell us what's going on there and where are you?
Yes, so we are at the Niagara County Clerk's building. We are outside of the building where the DA has his office, and we are here standing up for Tracy. We have many of her supporters here echoing the fact that compassion is not a crime. She did everything that any kind-hearted person would do.
Now, why is this important? We also covered a whole bunch of trials that got little to no mainstream coverage. But in this case, when Tracy Murphy was arrested, there were a whole bunch of local stories. And they only one I considered fair, but a lot of them were just piling on to this woman who has received death threats, who they've done protests outside her sanctuary. She's not allowed to speak. She's been gagged. But then when the counter protesters did this demonstration, there was virtually no media coverage. There was a couple of articles, but nothing compared to the articles that were expressing outrage that she didn't hand over the cows and were siding with farmers in that case. So that is a really, really important thing, because if we were live for 2 hours of that protest, I mean, if we hadn't been there, nobody would have even known that protest had happened. Covered other trials. I'm going to go very quickly to one last trial, then we'll wrap it up, because these trials are very, very important. They are essentially putting the whole issue of open rescue on the map and saying that one does have the right to expose the horrors of factory farming and rescue these animals. In a couple of cases, like in this case, where former Baywatch actress Alexandra Paul and her co-defendant were put on trial, we did 9 days of trial coverage, got 55,000 views. People said the number one way they were able to stay up to date on the case was by watching our coverage. So that's a really important service that we're offering. I just want to very quickly go back to our streaming network and show you how we were the only ones live for the entire trial, but we were also the only ones live when they found her not guilty. Everybody went crazy. I mean, it was so exciting to be live at that moment. It's very easy to download. If you have an Apple TV device, all you do is put in Unchained TV. If you have a Roku device, you just put in Unchained TV. One word. If you just put in Unchained, porn sites will pop up. Just a warning. But Unchained TV, one word. If you have a Roku device, Amazon Fire Stick, or Apple TV device, you've just seen how you can watch it online. And you can also download it right now. Whether you have an Android or an iPhone, you can download it. Literally more than 1,000 videos. And guess what? You can text any of these videos to anybody right from your phone. So you're having a conversation with somebody and somebody says, "What do you eat? Grass?" Just say, "Oh, I got something to text you." You don't have to argue with them anymore. And text them a cooking video. I left out, talk about bearing the lead. I left out, we did a 20 episode cooking series called New Day, New Chef that won 2 Taste Awards and was nominated for 8 Taste Awards. And it's also on Amazon Prime, and it was on public television stations around the country. There's also an ability, as we do sophisticated programming, to have it on our product, not just on Unchained TV, which is good enough because we're growing, to have it on other platforms like local PBS stations or some of the smaller streaming channels. Why am I doing this? If the mainstream news media, where I worked for 38 years, covered these issues, we wouldn't have to do it. If there were vegan cooking shows, and I'm really happy that Tabitha Brown broke through on the Food Network and has contemplated the first vegan cooking show on a major network, but that's one show. There is a mainstream media blackout on this content. And the reason is, look at the advertisers: meat, dairy, and pharmaceuticals, fast food and pharmaceuticals. Those are the people who keep the lights on at the networks. So they don't talk about it. And, you don't have to have somebody knock on your door and say, "Hey, don't talk about it." If you have half a brain, you look at the commercials that are paying the bills, that are paying your salary, and you realize, I better not talk about that. That's why when there's a drought here in California, they send the reporters out to talk about the almonds, but they don't talk about the fact that this is the largest dairy state, and it's the cows that are drinking a huge percentage of the water and then ruining a huge percent of the water with their feces. No, you won't hear that on the local news, but we do those kinds of stories. In fact, we did a whole bunch of stories and showcased a whole bunch of protesters who were trying to save Point Reyes National Seashore, where local authorities have sided with the dairy industry, even though it's a national park and millions of people come not to see dairy cows. They come to see the Thule elk that the government is deliberately depriving of water to benefit the dairy industry. So with the government co-opted by the meat and dairy industry and the big pharma industry, with corporations and the media co-opted, we have a moral obligation and a strategic necessity to use these kinds of platforms. And the final thing I'll say is that streaming, again, has overtaken broadcasting cable as the number one way people are absorbing television, and it's only in its infancy. And the number one search term of streaming device users, the number one thing they're looking for is free. So that's why everything on Unchained TV is free. And we constantly emphasize in tags and promotions that it's a free streaming network. Thank you so much. So I'll take your questions. One of the reasons I started this is that we are all living in a vegan echo chamber. I don't know how many of you have gone to events where you're going to watch a gruesome film filled with examples of horrific cruelty, but we're all vegan already, so we're already all on board. What's the purpose of that? We want to reach non-vegans, what I call pre-vegans, especially the veg curious, people who, are open-minded to it. They've heard a little bit about factory farming being bad. What's this all about? I think there's a good percentage of people. I think they said 37% of people have gone vegan because of documentaries. Honestly, I think Earthlings has turned more people. If you can get through Earthlings and continue to eat meat, you need to go see a psychiatrist. It's very important to have people exposed to long form content. Yes, everybody's obsessed with social media, but the fact is that you may not have a life-changing experience watching a 20-second video. But when you are in here watching these videos, you will absolutely guarantee you be changed. We expanded again to try to get other people in the tent who might be interested in things like composting. So I was uploading some composting videos that are vegan. They're composting vegan stuff. And I realized, wait a second, I'm a hypocrite. I'm not composting. But it hadn't actually occurred to me until I started looking at the videos I was uploading. And I thought, I got to start composting. And I did. I got a green bin for the condo association where I live. And I have a plastic thing inside my fridge where I put all that. I'm into composting now. And that was from watching my own video. So long form does help. What we really focus on is the vegan component. I produced a documentary called Countdown to Year Zero, which says essentially we could reverse climate change. We could begin to immediately start reversing climate change today by getting people to switch en masse to a plant-based diet. 40% of the usable land is used for animal agriculture, and that area is not absorbing carbon because trees absorb carbon. That's how they make trees, is they take the carbon and through photosynthesis, they create trees and leaves, etc. So we could immediately begin to reverse climate change. So one of the things that we try to do is alert environmental groups to the missing component of veganism. Because what we're seeing is people marching a lot and railing against what is basically almost a hypothetical concept, fossil fuels. There isn't as much pushback against that because they know that people really don't have the ability to fight fossil fuels the way they would have the ability to eat a whole food plant-based diet 3 times a day. We don't just promote environmental groups. It's got to be environmental groups that are aware that the number one way we could reverse climate change today, not everybody can afford to go out and buy a Tesla, but everybody can eat a healthy whole food plant-based diet 3 times a day. And that statistically, and there's tons of evidence to show, has a much lower carbon footprint. I'll give you an example. At one of the recent COPs, the one in Scotland, I think that was COP 26, and we had a reporter there. And funny enough, our reports were very different than the network reports because there were a lot of signs, go vegan. But when you looked at the network coverage, and it didn't matter what network, no signs of veganism. The UN put a climate price tag on every item they served. And they had only a couple of vegan options. But the Washington Post actually wrote this article. I'll give media credit for occasionally getting a good story out there. They said, wow, the carbon footprint of the vegan items was so much lower than the carbon footprint of the meat items that they were selling. Why did they even offer them? That was the Washington Post. I'm not going to go and do a whole thing on a bunch of kids marching down the street going, bah, bah, bah. Well, the government isn't doing anything. Corporations aren't doing anything. The one thing that the powers that be fear is people taking the power back and actually reversing climate change themselves. I did a whole documentary. It's on Unchained TV called Countdown to Year Zero. It's won 14 awards. I urge everybody to look at it. First of all, please don't think I'm a proponent of fossil fuels. It's a very big part of the equation. And, so many people focus on that. What we're trying to focus on is what people aren't focusing on. For example, I was at one of these Fire Drill Fridays. I admire her in other ways. Jane Fonda was speaking and she was talking about fossil fuels. And I said, and animal agriculture. And she said, you be quiet. That's a direct quote. there is a huge, huge, huge movement of people fighting fossil fuels, Extinction Rebellion, Fire Drill Fridays. A lot of big groups that are getting big money are fighting that. And I'm not saying I'm not fighting it. We're fighting the Ballona wetlands. The reason why they're trying to destroy the Ballona wetlands is that SoCal Gas has a giant gas storage facility underneath the wetlands that is crumbling, and they need to either upgrade it or shut it down. They should just shut it down. Instead, they're creating a phony restoration, and the government agencies are going along with it. What I'm trying to say is, while there's a large group of people advocating against fossil fuels, they're missing a piece of the puzzle that is essential. If you only focus on fossil fuels, you could even accelerate climate change, because there are cooling agents that would be eliminated along with the reduction of fossil fuels that could accelerate climate change. Now, I am the first to say I am not a scientist. I would say read his white paper. You can go to climatehealers.org. You can also watch Countdown to Year Zero on UnchainedTV. And there's also the Animal Climate Dilemma, which is an animated short film that kind of summarizes his position. I certainly feel that fossil fuels is part of the problem. But if we really want to solve it, we can't leave out, arguably, a major cause of climate change, according to some, the major cause of climate change. The problem, as I see it, is that all of these people are marching and demanding that we fight fossil fuels, but it's harder for an individual to fight fossil fuels than it is for an individual to go vegan, which would have a radically, just a huge impact on climate change. If we took 40% of the Earth's surface that's currently being used, 40% of arable land that's currently being used for animal agriculture, and reforested it, we could almost immediately begin to start reducing climate change. I understand very clearly that that is a part of the problem. I mean, I don't know what analogy to use, but if you went to the doctor and you had 2 deadly illnesses and they only focused on curing one deadly illness, but you had the other deadly illness being ignored, you're still going to die. And this is the problem, is that people are not looking at a very big part of the problem. Because fungi is going to be one of the big solutions. We talk about cell-based meat, we talk about bioidentical meat, but fungi, which is not a plant, it's its own species, fungi, mushrooms can be used as a replacement for leather. It can be turned into steak-like, meaty type dishes. I would love to do something on fantastic fungi. All I have to say is I come at this from a perspective of what is going to reduce suffering the most: animal suffering, human suffering, planetary suffering. We are repeating the meat industry's talking points when we just rail about how unhealthy Impossible Foods is, or Beyond Meat burgers. They are healthier than eating an animal. Processed meat is officially cancer-causing, according to the World Health Organization. 1 out of every 4 people dies of heart disease, which comes from clogged arteries. That kind of cholesterol does not exist in vegan products. Is it a perfect solution? I don't eat it every day. It's just something to treat. If I'm at a party or at a restaurant, I might have a little bit. But the point is that we've got to realize that nobody's talking about how unhealthy meat is. They attack Beyond Meat for being processed. Well, guess what? If I take a mango and a banana and I put it in the Cuisinart, it's processed. Processed is not all equal. We've got the World Health Organization declaring that processed meat is officially cancer-causing, like cigarettes. And we don't talk about it, okay? And the media doesn't talk about it, but the media tries to attack these mushed up peas that might not be exactly the way we want them, but they're there as an alternative to eating a cow. And, then we pile on and say they're not this, they're not that. They're not a dead animal. They have a lower carbon footprint. They're certainly nowhere near as unhealthy as a meat item. We have to live on life's terms. Would I like everybody to go whole food plant-based today? Yes. Is that going to happen? I don't think so. I myself, got into this because of animal suffering, and it's been taking me a long time to really embrace the whole food aspect. So I do. Doesn't mean I don't enjoy a piece of vegan cake every so often. Point is that we're not going to even have a planet. Look at Sir David Attenborough breaking boundaries. There's like 9, I think something like 9 boundaries that once you break, there's no turning back, like the collapse of the glaciers. And we're barreling toward those things. A plant-based diet can prevent that from happening by giving every person the power to do their part to reverse climate change. Please be careful about repeating the meat industry's talking points. That's all I'm urging people to keep in mind, because they want us to attack these foods. Remember, when all we had was brown rice and beans and tofu, they said, what do you eat? Oh, I could never eat that way. Then we create these things, say, okay, if you can't give that up, here, we have things that mimic some of your comfort food. Oh, well, it's processed. They want to put us in a no-win situation. Whoever frames the debate wins the debate. We have to make sure we're not falling into their traps. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Jane Velez-Mitchell, for taking the time, your precious time today, to share all this with us. Mahalo.